All right, everybody, welcome back. Ready for another deep dive?
Always.
Okay, good. Today, we're going to be talking about AI.
Oh, very timely.
It is very timely.
Mm.
It seems like, well, honestly, for the last several years, but especially in like the last 6 months to a year, it feels like AI is just exploding. I mean, it's just everywhere you look.
It really does feel that way.
Yeah. So we found this really interesting news segment. It's actually pretty short, only a couple minutes long, about the EU and what they're trying to do because they're trying to regulate AI.
Mm-hmm.
And the big question this raises is, can they actually pull this off? Because, well, I mean, like we were just saying, this technology is changing so fast.
Right, exactly. And it's not just about, like, can they write rules fast enough to keep up with it, but how do you even define rules for something that's so complex and has the potential to be used in so many different ways?
Exactly. I mean, some people are really concerned about the ethical implications.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, are we going to see AI bias, where AI systems are actually making unfair decisions?
Yeah, yeah, or even discrimination.
Exactly. Or like mass surveillance with facial recognition technology and stuff like that. It's pretty freaky when you think about it.
Yeah, you could have AI algorithms basically deciding who gets a loan, who gets hired for a job, or even, predicting whether someone might commit a crime, which is getting into some really, really sensitive territory.
Right. Like, think about that for a second.
Yeah.
What if an AI system flags you as a potential criminal based on, I don't know, your zip code or something totally out of your control?
Well, how do you even appeal that, right? Like, who do you argue with? An algorithm?
Exactly. That's the thing. It's all so new. There's no precedent for this stuff. So this is what's so interesting about what the EU is trying to do. It's almost like they're trying to get ahead of all of this and set the standards before things get even more out of hand. Kind of like what they did with GDPR for data privacy a few years ago.
Yeah, that's a good comparison. GDPR really did set a global standard, even though it originated in Europe.
Exactly. So, I mean, a lot of businesses, even here in the US, had to scramble to comply with GDPR. So if the EU manages to do the same thing with AI, you could have huge implications for businesses and individuals all over the world.
No question about it. And, the segment we read highlighted this tension between, regulating AI to protect people and, potentially stifling innovation.
Oh, yeah, definitely. That came up right away.
Because, you have the tech companies, right, who are saying that if Europe is too strict with these rules, it's going to put them at a disadvantage compared to companies in the US or China, where the regulations might be less strict.
Right, right. Because if you're a tech company and you have to jump through all these hoops in Europe, you might just decide, you know what, it's not even worth it. I'll just focus on other markets.
Exactly. And that could slow down the pace of innovation in Europe. But on the other hand, if you don't have any regulations, you could end up with all these unintended consequences that we were talking about before.
So it's kind of like a balancing act, right? It's finding that middle ground where you're protecting people, but also allowing for innovation to thrive.
Yeah, totally. And what the EU is proposing with this AI Act is actually kind of interesting. It's not like a one-size-fits-all approach. They're trying to categorize AI systems based on their level of risk.
So like a tiered system.
Yeah, exactly. So, like, if
Yeah.
you have an AI system that's just, recommending products on Amazon, that would probably fall into the low risk category.
Okay, that makes sense.
But then you have systems like facial recognition for surveillance or predictive policing that we were just talking about. Those would be classified as high risk and would be subject to much stricter regulations.
Makes sense. So, I mean, this all sounds good in theory, but how do they plan to enforce this?
Well, that's a big question. And honestly, the news segment didn't really go into a ton of detail on that, but they did mention that there will be fines for companies that violate the regulations.
Okay, so there are some teeth to it at least.
Right. And I think the idea is that by setting clear standards and having penalties in place, it'll encourage companies to build AI systems responsibly from the start.
I see. So even if the enforcement isn't perfect, just having these regulations in place could have a significant impact on how AI is developed.
Exactly. And the other interesting thing is that this AI Act is still being finalized. So there's still a lot of debate and discussion going on about the specifics.
Oh, wow. So it's not a done deal yet.
Not quite, but the segment did say it's in the final stages, so it seems like it's moving pretty quickly. And the fact that even big tech companies like Google and OpenAI are paying close attention to this, well, that tells you something about how seriously they're taking it.
Yeah, it's a good reminder that this isn't just some abstract policy debate. This has the potential to have a very real impact on the AI products and services that we all use every day.
Absolutely. It's like the EU is trying to shape the future of AI, and the whole world is watching.
So, I mean, after going through all this, what do you think the most important thing for our listeners to take away from all of this is?
Well, I think the biggest takeaway is that we're at a really pivotal moment in the development of AI. And the decisions that are made today about how to regulate this technology, well, those decisions are going to have a huge impact on the future. Like, what kind of world do we want to live in where AI is concerned?
Right. And I think the EU's AI Act, whether it succeeds or fails, it's a sign that we can't just ignore the potential risks of AI. We need to be having these conversations and thinking critically about how to ensure that AI is used for good and not for harm. So I think that's a good place to leave it for today. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive, everyone.
Yeah, thanks, everyone.
And, as you go about your day, here's something to think about. If the EU does manage to set the global standard for AI regulation, could it end up shaping the very direction of AI development, steering it towards certain applications and away from others? Just something to ponder. All right, until next time.